or are we expecting Calamity to have a good showing?
This should be a 2-0 for Fnatic. They are the favorite just in terms of, even before the change, I would say they were the favorite, but now because Calamity has a roster change, obviously they're going to be feeling comfortable with it as much as they can, but it's still, you need that little bit of time to be able to mesh and gel as a unit, and Fnatic has that advantage.
Absolutely. It's time to jump on into the draft here. Fnatic going to be starting things off. Rhyme will be the first ban. That's something we saw in 2.8 was incredibly popular. Not 100% sure how the meta is right now. Zoro, do you want to give me a breakdown of what you're expecting?
Of course. I mean, Rhyme is still incredibly strong, even in 2.9. His clear speed is still incredible. He got nerfed quite a bit, but again, teams are still prioritizing him, and he can dominate the jungle still. A lot of different changes has come in this batch, especially most significantly the defense and health changes. Now, heroes have a lot more health. They have less defense with armor and shield. That has buffed and nerfed so many different things indirectly. Things such as Black Feather, things such as Aftershock, Fountain, all the things that capitalize on health
Anything
percentage.
Based, right?
Health percentage is incredibly strong right now, and that's why we see things such as Black Feather, as I mentioned. Reza is an incredible jungler right now, actually. On top of the buffs he's got, and if he picks up an Aftershock, he becomes extremely strong. So I'm hoping to see some adaptation to the patch, but I do expect teams to take it a little bit slow at the beginning just because they don't have the best feel for the update yet.
We're definitely still feels like we're on 2.8 with this draft so far. Crawl going to be the first pick coming on through here for Fnatic, but they took a while figuring out which one they wanted to go with first.
Yeah, and it's just that because there are so many options right now and so many things that are going to be unknown factors to a lot of us coming in, because of the fact that we're on this new update. I do also want to point out we are on update 2.9.1. That hotfix is live for the Vainglory8 as well. So we are going to be seeing, the extra strength on the Baron, extra strength on the Scarf. Things like that are going to be very much things we have to focus on.
Yeah, indeed. Tension Bow got a slight buff too.
Yeah.
It was necessary because health counters Tension Bow. It's a traditional thing that common knowledge. So it needed a buff. It got a buff. Black Feather gets banned. It's an extremely strong laner. I'm actually very surprised that no one is first picking it, or Calamity Reborn is not leaving it to be picked.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be very different once we go to North America.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about Celeste here, because typically Black Feather was like the Celeste counter, and Celeste was incredibly popular last patch. Does this ban open up a Celeste pick for Calamity, or is she fallen off completely?
It's not that she's fallen off completely, it's just that it's not as much of a priority by any stretch. Like Hamza was saying, a lot of the Crystal Mages have just sort of not been as prioritized right now because people are still trying to figure out what the optimal builds are going to be for each hero. It's not so much well, this hero just does a ton of damage, so they're the best one to pick now, because there's so much more utility that can be picked up with these items and the new items, the item reworks, things of that nature. Instead, we're going to be getting a Catherine, so it looks like Calamity could be running themselves a weapon lance here.
Yeah, it does seem like it. It's most likely going to be the weapon power lance, but it's possible at the same time, Munchables. And typically when you see something like this, you say they're going to pick a mage carry in the lane so that they can have that hyper carry. CP Idris is still extremely strong. There is Scarf that still opens Celeste, so that's most likely what they're going to end up picking. On the side of Fnatic, though, they have quite a few different options. Churn Walker is still open. That's something we haven't seen being picked up so far, but they choose to go with Lyra instead. Lyra is actually stronger now because her sustain is health percentage, and as we said, health is now increased, so you get more from her sustain, and the team fights also last longer, so any sustain base hero generally is stronger in this update.
Yeah, another indirect buff that came on through with the patch, and it's going to be Vox to round out this composition. Vox definitely one of those carries that we see in just about every meta and can just about fit into most compositions.
Vox is also a little bit of a takeaway here from Calamity, because at Fel, that was one of his most played heroes historically, has been this Vox. So by Fnatic picking that up, it is still a very strong pick. The thing is, now they're going to be running that double weapon most likely. And so this allows both the Catherine and the Lance to just build a ton of armor. Even though the armor has been nerfed a bit, not as strong, not as effective, if you stack a whole bunch of it, you're still going to be reducing the damage that is able to be dealt on the side of Fnatic by a lot, especially because now the piercing items no longer stack. It's either Tension Bow or Bonesaw. You can build both of them, but you're not going to get the pierce from both of them.
The Celeste is going to come through in the end, so I'm curious to see what the build path is going to be on that Celeste now that we're jumping on into the game. But double weapon coming out for the likes of Fnatic. What do we think of these compositions then, gentlemen? Starting with you, Zara.
I mean, Calamity have a very strong composition just because they have the Catherine on the front line as well as the Celeste on the back line. The only thing is the CP items are very different now, so I'm interested to see what Apfel is going to choose to build. I think it's going to rely very heavily on what he builds to allow his team to succeed.
I really like what Fnatic has here because with the double weapon, you're going to get a lot of armor built. Bonesaw is really effective right now, especially if you put that on a Vox or a Kroll. They're just going to shred through their opponent's armor and be able to deal a ton of damage. Their ability to get onto the back line is going to be pretty immense.
Yeah, and we could see a similar thing to what we saw back in Week 3 was the Kroll builds the Bonesaw, and so long as Vox is focusing on his targets, that's kind of a team-wide armor reduction. He doesn't have to then build the Pierce, so you can go much more aggressive in your build as well.
I actually hope that they do that. I want to see Vox not build the Bonesaw. I want to see him build Breaking Point because Breaking Point is actually now even stronger than Bonesaw just because you have less armor on heroes in general, so there's less armor to shred. So generally, a Breaking Point will do better than a Bonesaw. So as your main carry, which is the Vox, I hope to see that. And if they want to pick a piercing item, let it be on the Kroll.
Yeah. I think we have to talk a little bit about this Calamity Reborn composition as well, because when I think of Calamity Reborn, I don't think of a protect the carry composition. Even though Leon is a big carry player, we usually see Aeon on things like Glaive, and obviously Glaive is likely not going to be picked in this meta right now. He's not been that strong recently, but you don't expect Aeon to play this kind of passive role, so definitely feels like they've changed styles coming in.
Yeah, I don't know how passive they're going to be with it. That's the key for them, is they can be very aggressive with this Lance. Lance still does a ton of damage, especially if you're building weapon power on him. It could just be that they want to focus on just trying to get onto this Vox and shut him down hard, but they do have to worry about keeping that Celeste safe, but they have a very strong protection.
They do have really strong protection. For Fnatic side, they're going to have to play really aggressive throughout the mid game. They need to get ahead in order to be able to close out the game. They still have the portal to go on top of Celeste later on in teamfights and try to just burst her down. But getting ahead mid game is their key to being able to do that later on. Otherwise, they're going to be shut down very easily.
Yeah, I'm incredibly curious to see how this Celeste is going to be built as well by Apfel. Also, if it goes to Apfel, we've seen lane Lance back in Week 3. There's potential that switches around. I would expect the Celeste to go into lane realistically. What is the expectation of how things are going to be playing out? Or in fact, I believe the game is loading, so we are going to be jumping on into this one. Make sure to let us know who you think is going to take this one on Twitter using that hashtag Vainglory8 as ever. Let us know who you're supporting. Do you think Fnatic can make it to the top of the table? Do you think Calamity could pull out an upset on this one? Let us know at home who you are cheering for coming on into this game. But it's about time that we jump into our very first game of our second split of the Vainglory8. No Churnwalker, unfortunately, but this is going to be our first game of update 2.9, so we should be just about ready to jump on into this one. It's Fnatic against Calamity Reborn as we pass it over to the casters.
Thank you very much, Munch, and I am here, joined by Xscoundrel. My name is Medic. I should probably introduce myself first. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but Xscoundrel, I want to jump straight on into the action. I want to talk a lot about these compositions and about exactly how they're going to play off against each other.
Well, I just wanted to take a moment to say welcome back to Vainglory, Medic. I know you've been having fun gallivanting off around the world, but it's nice that you remember us, mate. Nice that you remember us in the defense.
How could I ever forget someone like you?
I think that's also very difficult. Anyway, like you said, let's move back onto the game. You've had your moment in the spotlight, my friend, and we'll get on through this. So, Fnatic running a composition that I think is pretty standard, but I think 9.1 Kroll still remains very strong. And with the changes to Tension Bow, both Vox and Kroll can make good use of Tension Bow and still get value out of a double weapon power composition. So Fnatic just running a safe composition in my eyes, although, ooh, Aeon misses there.
Yeah, Impale not hitting there from Aeon. Should have known that Ghost was going to get the stun with Merciless Pursuit, and Netwillet does get out. We did see the Elder Treant go over to Fnatic early on, with Calamity not really being able to get anything out of Fnatic's early push forward in the jungle.
Yeah, that's a rotation that you'll see more and more, especially against heavy dueling compositions like the... Wait, whoa.
I think we're okay. I think Apfel's going to be able to get out of this one safely.
It was close. It was close. I was worried for Atpearl for just a moment. Fnatic looking to be aggressive as possible, but that's a common rotation, especially given that it's a cruel early on, and against that amount of CC that both Ghost and Eon bring to the table, you don't really want to be dueling as a cruel early on. So they noticed they went from inside to out to make sure they didn't have to face a jungle duel where they felt that they were probably going to lose early on. So it's a sensible and safe rotation for Fnatic, and you can see they've actually been rewarded for it. They've been taking the better of these lane trades.
They're very effective in these lane trades. NetToilette doing a lot of work onto Atpearl, onto Ghost. Atpearl's already had to pop that healing of Flask and is actually looking to go back to Fountain as TechnoJJ and NetToilette continue to put the pressure on in this lane.
It's interesting, they were talking about Celeste's builds, and obviously with Frostburn not being a great item right now, people are sort of altering Celeste's build, but as while Frostburn obviously is a really key item for Celeste in terms of landing good supernovas, another part of Celeste's common item build got better. Clockwork actually received a pretty decent buff in its overall structure in terms of what it provides. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the core of the Celeste build, the Eve of Harvest, the Clockwork, and maybe a Dragon's Eye or a Shatterglass to stay the same. And then we're going to see potentially where he goes, because Frostburn still has its utility. There's no internal cooldown on the 1 second slow. So as long as you're landing ability, you're still going to get the utility out of Frostburn. So we'll see where Atpearl decides to go. But I imagine Eve of Harvest, Clockwork, and Shatter or Dragon's Eye will make the core part of this CP Celeste.
But in case people don't know, the changes to Clockwork is that when you hit an enemy with an ability, it reduces all of your cooldowns by 7.5 seconds, which is a monumental change, in all honesty, and can definitely help quite a lot with Celeste when you want to get those extra cooldowns out. You want to get more Helios down, especially when you're looking for these skirmish-based fights.
Yeah, well, with Clockwork, Helio's on about a 1.5 second cooldown anyway, so if you're reducing that by even further, my goodness, you'll have a very quick one. But it's very good for things like Core Collapse, which obviously is a great way to peel against a crew, and very good at shutting down engages through a Lyra portal, so obviously you want those off cooldown as quickly as possible. So yeah, and looks like Atpearl, well, before update 2.9, we would have known what that meant. Wait a second, Palmator is looking to go aggressive here.
Yeah, Aeon's getting chased out, as is Ghost. Impale comes back onto NetToilette, but Palmator just wants to get this heavy harass down with the Krill early on. Has gone for a early reflex block as well, knowing that he can get caught up by the Catherine and by this Lance and by the Core Collapse as well from Atpearl.
Yeah, previous to update 2.9, we would have said Atpearl with a heavy prism and an eclipse prism in inventory.
Everything builds out of that Excounge.
Exactly. Previous to update 2.9, it's like, oh, it's Frostburn or Shatterglass, most likely Frostburn. Now it's like anything. I wouldn't be surprised to see it be a Dragon's Eye or a Shatterglass to begin with. Shatterglass still remains in the meta as a very standard item build if you're not looking for elongated fights, if you're looking for the straight up burst, which in a lot of ways Celeste is. Shatterglass still remains a pretty solid item, and he is going to complete that on now, having the Shatterglass as his first item here. So.
And we are starting to see first items hit across the rest of the board as well. It's fine. Aeon has a tension bow to start himself off. There's a fountain for Ghost. If you look on the other side, it's a little bit more bitty. We're not seeing a completed item from Techno or Palmatoro. NetToilette has gone towards the Crucible first up, and we're going to see a fight erupt in the lane as well. Here comes the Impale back in from Aeon. Palmatoro is so low, the Crucible comes out trying to heal him up, and he will be able to run away, but the final auto is chasing him down. The stun right back. There's the fountain. Too late. First blood goes over to Fnatic, and they're going to continue to pressure Atpearl and Aeon out of this lane.
This is actually a build that FlashX was essentially trying to popularize and has had good success with. Palmator is not done yet.
Atpearl does get back underneath this turret. The damage coming out, the mortal wounds, the wait for it as well. The snare is going to hit on towards Aeon. He can try and turn this one back around. One of the benefits of Lance is you're not gated by that energy. You can just use your spells on cooldown, use those abilities as often as you like, and try and continue in these elongated skirmishes.
Yeah, as long as you have the stamina to do so, you're in a good position. Eon here, Tension Bow, and it's something that we didn't touch on, by the way. We talked so much about Cruel benefiting from Tension Bow right now. We talked so much about TechnoJJ potentially fitting a Tension Bow into his build, but, you know, a guy who pretty much relies on this item for his weapon power build path, and with it just getting buffed in update 2.9.1, weapon power land jungle is suddenly getting a bit better again. And obviously with the tension bow buffs, as Iraqi Zara was explaining, everybody's base health got increased in update 2.9, and the flat damage from tension bow did not. So strictly, tension bow got a hell of a lot worse in update 2.9. So they've buffed the flat tension bow damage by 33%, which now makes it very, very good in the early game again. It doesn't scale quite as well as it used to. There was a point in 2.8 where tension bow scaled until the late game, but it doesn't quite scale as good as it used to, but it's still a very, very valuable item. But interestingly enough, we talked about tension bow on the other carries. Doesn't look like they're going it at all. It's going to be a breaking point first for Palmatoro, and Techno JJ maybe working towards a Sorrow Blade or a breaking point of his own after that poison shift.
Picked up that poison shift to start himself off, and we're not seeing that mid-game spike that perhaps we expected from Fnatic. Aeon's going to jump in, misses, but the Crucible was used from Net Toilette. And with us coming 7 minutes into this game and it being so even, Xscoundrel, I want to talk a little bit more about win conditions. Because on the desk they were saying, you know, Fnatic had this spike in the mid-game. They really want to harass in the mid-game. Are we seeing Fnatic being held at bay a little bit here by Calamity?
A little bit, but I think you really have to wait for that breaking point to come online. When Palmatoro hits breaking point on this Cruel, that's when they're going to start to open up. Realistically, when you get Cruel on level 6, you essentially want to use that ultimate on cooldown, a little bit like you would anything for that reason, like a Koshka ultimate, for instance. You basically want to use that ultimate on cooldown, get into lane, consistently apply pressure to Apfel. What Calamity have been doing really well is basically coordinating their team around Apfel. Aeon and Ghost are body blocking like no other, and obviously trying to keep Apfel as safe as possible. His farm is very even with Techno JJ. This is a really good position for the Celeste to be in right now. So Fnatic do need to start to turn up the heat just a little bit, especially since they've hit two pretty big breaking points, literally, with Techno JJ finishing his and Palmatoro not being too far off his own.
So how do you turn up that heat? How do you actually, you know, put that oven on, get it preheated, get it firing on all cylinders if you're Fnatic? Because at the moment it feels like Calamity are very willing just to play the push the lane game, try and get some vision down, and then back off when Fnatic push forward.
Yeah, you need to find an opening. You need to get Cruel into that top rush, maybe unnoticed, look to pull the trigger on Apfel. If you can get a burst onto Apfel, because he doesn't have a reflex block right now, and there's no Crucible for Ghost. So realistically, if you land the Cruel ultimate, it's going to get a stun regardless. You need to find that opening, burst Apfel, and then the wave clear from Ghost and Aeon is so poor that you should be able to open up the map by going for that first turret. At the moment, Apfel is just clearing waves like no other. He's got the energy regen of Eve of Harvest, he's got the burst from the Shatterglass. He is very happy to just push waves back consistently against Fnatic. They need to be looking to find that opening and get that ultimate onto Apfel, but Ghost and Aeon are doing such a great job of just standing in the front.
A few more back on towards Palmatoro. The stun comes out as well, but they don't want to chase any further. There was an opportunity there where Palmatoro had snuck behind and Aeon had gone to farm his back camps, but Palmatoro was unable to connect with the From Hell's Heart, and now we'll just try and take away some of the jungle of Calamity, but still basically no gold between these two teams and no opening for Fnatic as of yet.
But the problem for Fnatic is that they want to force Gold9. Naturally, you want to bring Calamity to you to force a team fight. But the way that this lane is shaping up, because Apfel is shoving in so consistently, if Fnatic go for Gold9, all that Apfel and Ghost are going to do is push the lane and take the first turret and get the same kind of gold in return almost. So Fnatic in a very awkward position. Aeon also isn't very tanky, by the way, Medic. So if you look at him, he could also be a pretty decent target to try and burst down. No reflex block, only a small piece of light armor to guide his way in terms of defense. He could be a target. Don't feel so picky that you need to focus the Celeste. As long as you're not hitting Ghost, then Aeon or Apfel, both of which, you know, if you can force a 2 versus 3 just by picking off one of them, that's going to give you an opportunity to push this turret down. But right now, I mean, Calamity are holding back so well, and they're going to get towards that late game as quickly as possible. Broken Myth is coming in for Apfel, a very strong item. The more items you have for these hyper-scaling carries, and this is looking pretty good for Calamity.
Have to see if Fnatic are able to find that fight that they want. At the moment, Calamity holding them at bay well. And Aeon will jump forward with the Impel. Doesn't quite connect onto Net Toilette, who has got the Crucible and the Fountain completed. We did see Ghost actually going no Crucible of his own, instead going towards that Atlas Pauldron as his second completed item. Techno JJ is the target as Ghost goes in. Aeon there as well. Good stun, but Techno gets healed up. Here comes the From Hell's Heart. Looking for the connection, will land, but it's only onto Ghost, and that's not the target you want. Here's the wait for it as Fnatic try and turn the fight around. Mortal Wounds on towards Ghost is not going to do too much as they are able to get away back underneath their tower once again.
And Poison Shiv and Lyra heals are going to give them the siege potential Eon, Ghost, they don't really have the sustain. The only sustain is coming through from that Eve of Harvest right now, but the wave clear is just so good, and Fnatic don't have an opening without that Cruel ultimate. You mentioned the Atlas Pauldron. It really shuts down a Cruel build that goes into a breaking point early on. He hasn't actually finished the breaking point, by the way, and has gone towards a piercing spear. I'm wondering, because he's seen the Atlas Pauldrons, whether he just goes for a tension bow, but he has not finished a tier 3 item in terms of offense. And he is very, very far behind the curve in terms of having that tier 3 item on board, so I'm slightly worried for Palmotoro's damage output. He did manage to get the Crystal Sentry though, so that's not a bad situation.
Was caught off slightly on the wrong side of the Halcyon Fold there, but using a good reflex block gets himself away from Aeon. Here comes the engage from Ghost, the snare with the Bright Bulwark. He will keep himself alive for the time being. Knocked back, double block there though on the Blast Tremor, and actually Fnatic will be able to win out this fight for the time being. So the Solar Storm used from Apfel off towards the side. That's not really the direction you want it in.
I think he was looking to catch Palmotoro, who might have been trying to dodge an impale and trying to find a flank play potentially. Bit of miscommunication, you feel, between Fnatic. Palmotoro, at the end of the silence, used both his healing flask and then also next to let use the fountain. It was a bit of an unnecessary fountain. Had Palmotoro just shouted, "I'm going to use my healing flask, I'm going to be okay." Because Cruel has got so much inbuilt sustain into his kit, he could have just walked back into the jungle and generated that health back up. But right now, the gold is even Stevens. 200, 300 gold in it between these two. And still, Fnatic are yet to crack this opening first turret. And the longer and longer this goes, the more and more powerful Apfel is going to become on this Celeste. He's a very accomplished Celeste player as well. There's the Bonesaw, by the way. We've been gazumped. Palmotoro immediately getting the piercing down to make this double weapon power composition feel a little bit more useful.
And it's what Iraki's always said on the desk. He wants it on the Cruel, doesn't think you need it on Techno JJ. He's looking more to build up those breaking point stacks. So we need to keep a track of those in this next fight, because that's really where Fnatic are able to win out these battles. Still unable to take that first turret though, and they continue just to be pushed back by Calamity, who are not giving up this game without a fight.
Cruel, as you can see, I do like what Fnatic are doing here, but again, they might get caught up by the wave shove coming in from the rest of Calamity Reborn. Fnatic don't need to commit everybody to the gold miner though. Palmotoro should be in his own right able to do it, but look at this.
So many stuns onto Techno JJ, but still he just dodges away. The Solar Storm is not enough, and here comes Palmotoro chasing all the way onto Apfel. He needs to get the stun down, can't quite connect, but Apfel keeps running underneath his turret and gets away. The stun from Ghost is absolutely superb onto the Cruel. Another great block on towards the Blast Tremor will get Fnatic out alive, but once again, their plans are gazumped by Calamity. And that's perhaps how they're feeling a little bit now as well. Exasperated that they keep going for these engages and keep not getting the connections they want.
The chain CC from Calamity is just so insane as well. It's why reflex blocks, Aegises, and Crucibles were all prioritized by Fnatic early on, because if you get caught by one stun, you're likely to get caught by every single stun that the Calamity Reborn team have to offer. Ghost is trying to protect this turret as best he can. Not much of a minion wave to work with for Fnatic, and again, we're at the point where they are weathering the storm. However, the inclusion of this Bonesaw now, Medic, it means that the front line becomes that much less of a front line for Calamity. Suddenly, you have the 18% pierce that the Bonesaw provides you naturally, and you're going to build those stacks onto that single target. And Palmotoro and Techno JJ are likely, for the most part, going to be focusing that same target, so they're going to make maximum use out of those Bonesaw stacks. And here we go, Techno JJ varying up the builds, by the way, so he's gone for Medic, he's gone for the Tyrant's Monocle.
That he wants the extra crit chance, but I wonder about this Bonesaw as well, Excalibur, because the only person with, well, actually now Aeon has finished his own Atlas, so I was going to say the only person with armor was Ghost, but now Aeon with an Atlas of his own means that you can shred through that armor a little bit more. We do see the Kraken spawn onto the Halcyon Fold, and with no gold miners taken throughout the entirety of this game thus far, it's an environmentally friendly game. The World Wildlife Federation would be very happy with how things have gone. Endangered species being saved across the Halcyon Fold.
Absolutely, Medic, absolutely. And you can see Apfel now working towards his 4th CP item. I'm wondering what that is going to be. Maybe it's not going to be a clockwork because he's gone for the heavy prism. Apfel nearly caught out, but
a good stun there. Palmotoro just all by himself, weren't able to collapse with the rest of Fnatic, and just it's that miscoordination, it's that anti-synergy that we're seeing a little bit here from Fnatic that you talked about, Excalibur. They just don't quite seem to be on the same page at the moment.
Something that we've seen from Palmotoro quite a lot as well is that he often is a little bit disconnected from the rest of the team. He often makes decisions that the rest of the team aren't quite on the page with. And it's something that we have kind of criticized Fnatic for, even in their international performances at the Unified Western Live Championship. So we'll see. They seem to be a little bit more reserved in their play this time. Palmatoro is effectively kept on some sort of metaphorical leash here. He's kind of been reined in by the rest of his team and is making slightly less risky plays than we used to. He's actually picked up an extra reflex block as well, Medic, and this is the update where the fix has happened for reflex block. It doesn't share the same cooldown as Ethan now, and I'm wondering whether he's going to work that towards a crucible for the rest of the team.
Ghost goes in, there's the Impale, but TechnoJJ is going to block that one out. Ghost will take some damage in return, but Apfel can just stand on that front line. He knows the cooldowns have been used and can push down those Helios as much as possible. I think the problem is really here for Fnatic that they are in a position in the group after Split 1 that they need to win every week, really, to be able to catch up with SK and get that world spot. And when you see this little bit of indecision, when you see this little bit of hesitancy, when they have a composition that comes online at a certain point and they're not using it properly, you worry for their chances to get to that world.
They just haven't been able to execute on their strategy properly, and now you're at the point where it's a 4-item CP selection. She's got Dragon's Eye, for God's sake, on top of the Shatterglass. Those supernovas in elongated fights are going to hit like trucks, flaming star-shaped trucks from the sky, and you are seriously not going to last very long unless you're locking her down instantaneously. So yeah, I think you're right. They had an opportunity to capitalize, and they just haven't been able to do that, and it's been a slow, awkward affair. This has been a game of Vainglory and 15 minutes with just one kill. I can't remember the last time I've seen that, Medic. I don't think I've ever cast a game of Vainglory where it's been this reserved and this, I think, slow-paced.
I think when we used to cast, like last year, EU was known as the much slower meta, so perhaps I brought a little bit of a curse back with me, and the teams just want to play it out as slowly as possible. As you say, Apfel has finished the Dragon's Eye. Just for any viewers who haven't seen the 2.9.1 updates, Dragon's Eye gets 20 extra crystal power for each second you're damaging enemy heroes. After 2.5 seconds of not damaging enemy heroes, you lose all of those stacks, and it stacks up to 9 times. So you can get up to 180 extra crystal power out of that one item if you're continually landing those supernovas and those Helios on towards the Fnatic enemy.
You can see now the range of Celeste post level 8 with that Dragon's Eye in tow really starting to punish Fnatic here. They don't have the opportunity to engage the first turret. That was 732 damage. Obviously the resistances of turrets have been lowered, by the way, which is why you get that excessive CP damage on them now as well. But Fnatic, they are just healing to save themselves. They're not even finding opportunities to open up the fight. And even if they did, they've got to get through all of that CC and peel that the Catherine and the Lance provide, the Githian Wolves, the stuns, the silences. Really need that second Crucible, you feel, from Palmatoro, but he's working towards what appears to be a Sorrow Blade, just for a little bit extra burst onto Apfel.
TechnoJJ looking for crits as well as he goes double Tyrant's Monocle in his build. Palmatoro goes for the engage. There's the wait for it as well. Good damage here on that front line. Already we see the Lance go down, and Aeon has fallen. Here's Palmatoro straight onto Ghost with the From Hell's Heart, looking for another kill, but the death on the backline as well as Net2Elect will fall. The turret goes down. TechnoJJ in that front line trying to dodge away from Ghost, and here comes Palmatoro once again, and they will accept the tower and kill trade underneath that first turret for Calamity.
And whilst that was a successful attempt at a siege from Fnatic, you have to worry that Apfel was A, untouched, and B, dealing incredible amounts of damage from the backline. That's only sort of spells ill omens for Fnatic as this game goes on, and they're going to lose their first tier turret in return of that. So realistically, it's actually ended up being an even trade. You don't get any benefit for taking the first turret of the game. As long as they're able to respond, you're going to even up that gold score. Bracken has been untouched and unfazed because we are 20 minutes and the first turrets have only just gone down. I bet North America are looking at this game saying, goodness me, what is this? Like, first turret's not going down for 20 minutes? This is very much, I think you've brought that curse back in full effect, Medic.
This is
very much that slow-paced, careful Europe that we were used to seeing last year. And you just feel that it's favoring Calamity the longer and longer we go.
Passage in as Palmatoro looks for the stun, will land onto Ghost, but the rest of the team are chasing all the way down. TechnoJJ in that front line with the wait for it as well onto Apfel. Looking for a flank here. Ghost pops down the blast tremor, the stun onto Palmatoro as he's knocked into the wall. Ghost with the stun off towards the side as well, and now Fnatic are on the back foot as Calamity look to try and chase it down, but they don't have the boots, they don't have the chase potential at the moment. Fnatic will be able to heal up with that Imperial Sigil.
Oh, you feel for Fnatic, they're trying to make the right moves, but if you just cannot lock down Apfel, especially now that he's got that metal jacket, he's gonna just kite you away so easily. He's got the Halcyon charges with a bit of cooldown reduction in there, not including the clockwork in his build. And you see they have to, if they don't immediately get Apfel down, they retreat out of the fight, and that's where Celeste starts to shine, no pun intended. She's able to chase you down with those heliogenesis, and not quite all cylinders firing at the same time for Fnatic, and Palmotoro admittedly landing his boomerang on somebody, but didn't quite land it on the target. I mean, there is credit to saying keeping Ghost out of the fight allows you to more effectively keep your pressure onto Apfel, but there we go again.
Netulet gets onto the backline. They're trying to get onto Apfel here. That from Hell's Heart will connect, and the wait for it coming out as well. The silence, but Apfel somehow still alive as he runs out towards the back of this fight. Aeon's gone low as well. That's a hero kill. Double Bone Saw working wonders here for Fnatic. They continue to chase onto Apfel. Techno JJ with the flank. The Blast Tremor comes out, and here's the Crystal Sentry trying to help out Calamity, but it's too little, too late. A double kill for Fnatic. Ghost is going to fall as well as he gets chased out towards the bottom.
Wow.
Fnatic get the ace. And off that, perhaps they can take the Kraken and break the base of Calamity.
Oh my goodness, absolutely nothing for 22 minutes. One attempted engage by Fnatic that went a little wrong, and then suddenly they are back at it. I think that was the right game plan. That is the only way you have to circumvent the Githian wall, the Impale, the stun, everything like that. Let's take a look at the replay. Everything is focused on getting that portal past that front line. The stun lands, no reflex block. It was point blank onto Apfel, which is very difficult to block, especially if you're trying to block it through a Crucible use coming from Catherine. And from that point forwards, the speed up boosts and the block of the silence as well, and keeping Palmotoro stuck to Apfel was massively, massively impactful. That's exactly how Fnatic needed to play. They're getting the massive healing coming out from Lyra as well now, giving them the longevity in fights, putting Apfel on the back foot. Incredible play from Fnatic.
And just before that fight as well, they switched out the Poison Shiv on Techno JJ for a second Bone Saw, helping them shred through that armor, helping them shred through that front line a little bit more, and helping Fnatic take the win in the fight. Now they're looking to break the base as they try and get this choke point turret down, but the Crystal Sentry's helping out Calamity just a little bit as they will use that fourth man. Ghost goes in for the stun. Kraken's still there at about half HP, and the turret's gone down to about half itself. Fnatic at the cusp of winning this game, you feel, and they will be able to crack the base of Calamity. Netulet actually looking for the engage as he gets onto the back of Apfel. Palmotoro's there as well. The rest of Fnatic join the fight through the arcane passage, but they can't quite get on towards Apfel, who is able to escape back towards his base.
Yeah, Kraken too low. I think they were just trying to force Calamity back off the Kraken, maybe giving him an opportunity to push into the base and find an opening, but alas, that's not a bad push with Kraken. You've opened up that Calamity base now. There's more space for you to work with. I think there's just one Crystal Sentry life remaining. Might even be 0. I can't remember if it's been eliminated completely. Now Palmotoro is looking for a flank. The vision isn't quite there for Calamity. And you can see Calamity are playing very awkwardly, very safe, trying to protect themselves as much as possible, keep Apfel behind that padding, bubble wrap padding. Whoa, wait a second.
They're going to engage onto Apfel. He's been caught out. The rest of the team there, but good Githian Wall knocks in 2. Here's Palmotoro as well, trying to get on towards that Celeste. The Solar Storm does a lot of work. The slow. Can they keep Apfel alive? They can't, and this will be the end. You have to feel for Calamity. They are running for the hills because Fnatic are on the chase, and this pack of wolves do not take any prisoners. Another kill as the Catherine falls, and Fnatic, with 3 members strong, can look to win the game and take down the Crystal.
Yeah, they're going to have plenty of sustain with the Lyra. Aeon's damage well off the charts now. Huge healing coming out from Lyra. Medic, I think they might struggle here. They might struggle. Aeon might be going for a hero play.
Netulet's already dead, but the Spectral Smite will take down that final turret, and now Aeon has to try and balance between taking out Techno or taking out Palmotoro, and he just can't do enough. Fnatic take game 1 of the best of 3.
The double bone saw pickup, like you mentioned, that it made it so much easier for Techno JJ. They didn't have to coordinate as much. It meant that Techno JJ could get to Palmotoro could get to the back line and pressure Apfel, and whilst Techno JJ was able to then shred the armor on the front line of Aeon and Ghost and work his way to that back line if he had the opportunity to do so. It made it a lot more flexible. It made the armor almost feel useless on Calamity. And finally, Fnatic found the way to push through using those portals to circumnavigate all of that peeling that Calamity brought to the table. And finally, found the opening to take out Atfel, who, by the way, didn't go for a clockwork, didn't have that ability to just get those core collapses off more and more quickly. Interesting build that you'd go for both Shatterglass and Dragon's Eye, in my opinion. But regardless, Fnatic take the win.
That they do, and we're going to hand it over to Munch and the guys on the analyst desk to break down just how they got 1-0.
Very slow start to this split right there coming out from those teams. We had, what, 3 kills in the first 20 minutes of gameplay? Insanely passive early game coming out from the two teams. Definitely, I think, testing the waters here in 2.9. Let's talk about that game a little bit. I mean, the first replay we have was only 19 minutes into the game. That's how passive this... And this fight didn't even end up in any kills.
Yeah, it was a very strange team fight, or game, really, throughout the early game. I think a lot of it was just the teams not really being fully confident in their compositions at that point. Very early on, a lot of these heroes are a lot squishier. We saw there's been effective health charts put out there where early game, a lot of heroes are actually a lot less effective health pools, whereas late game, they become a lot stronger and a lot more sturdy effective health pools. So I think in this game, it was just these teams not really willing to make a play that might end up resulting in a mistake.
Absolutely, and our next replay is when we actually saw an ace coming through for Fnatic. Iraqi Zoro, can you talk me through what went wrong here for Calamity?
For Calamity, they just got a little bit out of position. Celeste ended up being a little bit on the front line, and Fnatic were executing their win condition really effectively. They used the portal to close the gap onto Celeste, but then when she backed away too far, they switched target focus to Lance, and even though he has a lot of armor, with the double ball saw that they had both on Cruel and on Vox, they were able to just shred through that armor and kill him on the front line when Celeste was still trying to retreat. So Fnatic played really well into their win condition. First time they did it, they played into a choke point, which is not going to work very well against the Lance. The second time, it was a little bit more of an open area, and that's why it ended up being very effective for them.
Yeah, they managed to pull themselves out an ace, and then our final replay is the last ace that Fnatic got just before they ended the game. Honestly, they almost didn't end the game, but this was their fight.
Yeah, this was, I mean, very, very strong fight. Again, getting right onto Abfel. He has nowhere to go. He's just stuck on the back lines, and the protection isn't able to come through. Krull and Vox both able to go right past him. Vox going with this old school build that we used to see of the breaking point double monocle, adding in a bone saw along with Palmatoro having one as well. You know, we said we don't want to see the bone saw because we want to see the breaking point. How about both? That works just as well.
Yeah, it certainly does. We saw both coming on through there, and that was Fnatic managing to take the game. I want to talk a little bit before we get into the next draft about the build on Celeste here, because this is the first CP build we've seen on 2.9. Is this what we're expecting from every Celeste ever? Is this optimum? Like, what are the feelings right here?
I mean, he went for the Shatterglass, Dragon's Eye, Broken Myth, and Eve. I think there are 2 items in this build that's going to be fairly standard, which is the Dragon's Eye and the Broken Myth. You need both of them for late game scaling damage, because the Dragon's Eye gives you the stacks as you team fight for longer, and the Broken Myth obviously gives you the piercing. Both of them are very core. The Shatterglass and the Eve are very interchangeable. You can go for a Clockwork like Stroundel was trying to push. Clockwork works very well on heroes that have long cooldown abilities. This is fairly standard, but I think similar builds will start coming out too.
I have to disagree a little bit as we get into this next draft, though. I think the Shatterglass is incredibly important on a hero like Celeste. It's basically, the math was done. If you have high ratios, Shatterglass first item is one of the best builds you can go, and then you get the Broken Myth a little bit later on. Whereas if you have low ratios but just high flat damage, then the Shatterglass isn't as important. But we are going to be once again seeing the pedal banned by Calamity Reborn, really not wanting to go up against this hero, and it's curious to me as to why, because you're really only banning out the weapon path on, because the crystal pedal path has been severely nerfed due to the Frostburn changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Krull going to be taken off the board as well, and Calamity, they're going to go straight for that Lance for the second time now, and we'll see what Fnatic will respond with.
I am liking the Lance picks more than the first pick so far. It's a great takeaway from Fnatic, but I don't like the fact that they went for hyper carry as a composition last game. It doesn't. The hyper carry, protect the carry compositions work well, but it's only for certain teams. It's not for every team. And Calamity Reborn, in my opinion, have strengths elsewhere. Aeon being able to play aggressive on the glaives, on the Cruels, on the battles, being able to play aggressive, get into the enemy jungle, or make plays. I don't like him on a passive hero where he's protecting Apfel. I hope they go for something different this time.
Well, we are going to see an Arden locked on in here for Fnatic, so very unlikely that they're going to go with any Churnwalkers this game. There's still potential on Calamity, though.
Yeah, and I don't think Churnwalker's going to necessarily come out now with the style these two teams are playing, but Arden is a pick I think we're going to start seeing a lot of. The changes to health and defensive items, and Arden himself getting a buff are massive buffs to Arden. All you have to do is just stack nothing but health on him. You don't even need the defensive items that we normally see of like the Alice Pauldrons or the the Aegis that we sometimes captains end up picking up. You don't need those on Arden. You just build flat health and you become almost invincible because it is just so difficult to take him down between his perk and just having more health overall.
Scarf going to be banned away here by Fnatic. Interesting one to take away considering it wasn't played in that last game. Perhaps looking to pick up a Celeste for themselves, trying to take away those premium CP carries away from Apfel after that Lance was locked in.
The Black that comes through as a ban, I think that's very smart because Fnatic could have picked it up there. The Scarf ban is a little bit of an interesting ban for me because I was going to say they're trying to take away something that counters Rhyme. Since they already banned the Cruel, Rhyme is open for Fnatic to be able to dominate the jungle matchup. And Scarf generally is a good hero to play against the Rhyme. On top of it, they already banned Black for the 2. That's another pick that you usually want to pick against the Rhyme to try and counter him in the jungle a little bit. Both of them are gone. They go for the Rhyme. It's a great pickup for Fnatic. And the Arden, like you mentioned, Tasty Bacon, is extremely strong this update. With all the health changes, with all the buffs to him too, he can shine in this update.
He certainly can, and we've seen he was banned in the last one, but Fnatic are going to grab him for themselves. I was surprised it got so far through the draft, honestly, but Adagio will be locked in for Calamity. This is not a pick I was expecting to see, especially in Europe. It's such a rare pick. Then Calamity locked that in.
Yeah, the Adagio is definitely a little bit of a surprise. It's something that can, again, be flexed. So Calamity going for a very flexible composition here of the Adagio and Lance. They can both go into multiple different roles, leaving this last pick available. It's really going to give this composition an identity. You would expect to see some other type of carry. Maybe they just go for something else that can be flexible, though, and just leave a lot of question marks on the side of Fnatic.
The Adagio did get a buff in 2.9, so that's most likely why they're looking at it. It's a little bit stronger, especially in the lane. They're going to combine it with the Rona. This is a traditional comp where you have a very strong front line with both Rona and Lance, and then a back line with Adagio able to heal Rona, buff himself, deal tons of CP damage from the back lines. So it's a strong overall composition for Calamity Reborn. And unlike last game, this is not the protect the hyper carry.
No.
Aeon can play very aggressive, and Apfel can support him from the back line.
This is the exact playstyle we were talking about with Aeon, right? Similar to a Glade with Rona, you want to jump in, you want to be in the skirmish.
The concern I have, though, is Rona into a Rhyme. Rhyme should win that matchup almost every single time. Yes, Rona can get some great damage off with the Red Mist, but Rhyme can just put down those Winter Spires right underneath her and just get so much damage, especially when you throw a Kestrel into the mix. Fnatic, I think they have an extremely strong composition here. It's going to be very difficult for this Rona to have the level of impact that she's going to need to.
Absolutely. It definitely feels like a strong meta composition from Fnatic, but I'm excited for this composition out of Calamity Reborn. At least they're going for something different. Rona and Adagio with the Lance. I mean, how are they going to be playing this one? Like, what is the win condition here for Calamity? Because this is not a composition I've ever seen.
Honestly, this is a composition that generally you want to see play very aggressive. You want to see Rona play aggressive, Adagio support her. They also have the Lance, who's a strong early game captain hero. The only thing is that, like you mentioned, Tasty Bacon, they're playing against a Rhyme. The Rhyme is going to have such a strong jungle matchup because of his clear speed and because of his last hitting ability. I'm expecting Rhyme to be able to get ahead early game, and it's going to allow Fnatic to close out the game later on. Reborn, while it's a composition they can fight with, they don't have too many tools against Rhyme.
All right, we'll see if the tools that they have are going to be enough to go against Rhyme on this one. It's time to jump on into our game. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter to let us know who you're supporting on this one. Fnatic against Calamity Reborn. Let's pass it back to Medic and Scoundrel for game number 2.
Thank you very much, Munch. We are going to jump onto the Halcyon Fold, and it really feels to me, Scoundrel, like Fnatic have won this draft phase. They just seem to have all the parts of Exodia, and they've combined them perfectly, and by their powers combined, they are going to be able to take down Captain Calamity.
How many parts does Exodia have? Was it 5?
Five parts of
Five,
Exodia.
yeah. There's only 3 on, I don't know. Maybe they got like the 3 major parts of Exodia.
Oh yeah, that's the important thing then. They've
That's
got
the
the hearts, they've got the Captain, I don't know the parts of Captain Planet either. Earth, Wind, Fire, and then the Avatar Nation attack. Anyway, let's get into the game. Apfel and Aeon.
The Avatar Nation attacks. It's like you tried and it just went horribly wrong.
Yeah, it did. It went pretty wrong. But once again, we see Fnatic taking the Elder Treant early on. They're doing that front-to-back style of jungling that we talked about in Game 1. And Calamity doing the back-to-front, and then realizing that that Elder Treant isn't there for them to take.
Yeah, caught out again by that as well. Fnatic moving that rotation, don't want to get stuck in the jungle trade. It also allows them to get the majority of the early clear, share a lot of experience between Palmatora and Techno JJ. Given that the experience share in the jungle has gone up, it's quite efficient to share the experience these days. As Palmatora rushes in.
Straight into the front line. He's going to take a lot of damage as Aeon and Ghost were waiting in the wings, but Techno JJ is doing a lot of work on this Kestrel from the side, and Calamity are the ones that'll have to back away.
So you saw there, Palmatora rushes in, obviously using the boots to get himself into position to set up for the route. He immediately becomes the focus. When you play against the Rhyme generally becomes the primary focus in the team.
Oh, he just survives using the healing flask there. That was so close.
Very, very close. Had to burn the healing flask to stay alive. We'll have that gift of fire to sustain him where possible as well. But Techno JJ wailing those glimmer shots in. And that actually leads back to that point about Rhyme, that when you get focusing Rhyme, when he becomes the primary focus in these team fights, it basically allows Techno JJ to A, position where he wants, and B, fire off those glimmer shot artilleries wherever he likes as well. He becomes less of a focus target because of how much attention Palmatora is going to draw and how hard Palmatora is to take down. He's a Rhyme, he generates fortified health. He's just a monster, and then combine that with the Arden shield, with Arden being in such a good place now, his Vanguard scaling really nicely with the health. And you just feel like Palmatora is going to be almost unkillable, I think.
And already in the lane, Techno JJ has a 6 farm advantage or so, and Apfel having to back away, they're just going to cost them gold early on, and that's where we see Fnatic really be able to take a stranglehold on this game. That's what we want to see from Fnatic as well, because they are a team that at the start of the year, at the start of Split 1, would have been saying, we want to challenge for Worlds, we want to get that EU World spot, and now they're lagging behind SK, they're lagging behind G2, and unless they start really winning against these lower tier teams in Calamity, they're not going to be able to challenge for that EU spot.
Yeah, remember there's only one European slot at Worlds available. We did not do very well in the Unified Western Live Championships, and therefore we rely solely on our winner of the Autumn Split to represent us at Worlds. It's looking like that will be SK, but obviously things can change depending on performances. So Fnatic, one of those teams that they need to start winning now if they want to find themselves at the World Championships in December. And it's a tall order for them, but it's definitely not out of the question impossible. They need to start showing better performances than last game, however. They can't be winning 25-minute games against the likes of G2 and SK, because it's just never going to happen. And if you go to Worlds against Ace, you're going to get obliterated. So I want to see more proactivity from Fnatic this time round.
I don't even think you need to call on Ace. I think you can say, you know, against C9, you're going to get obliterated.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to be able to actually perform to a high enough level to challenge even our NA rivals. So I like this early on from Fnatic. They put a little bit of pressure down. They've got that farm up. Apfel forced not to back away at the time that he wants to. And it's about disruption. It's about getting into the minds of your opponent, which is something that Fnatic historically have done pretty well.
Yeah, Aeon also rocking the Red Sonya. Red Sonya, the Red Rhoda skin. Unbelievably cool, by the way. Love that skin. Unable to find
EU analysis for you early on, guys. We're expecting nothing to happen for 15 minutes, so let's talk about the skins.
I've got to sell out, I guess, at some point. But obviously, it's not been a great early start here. You haven't found much coordination between Rona and Lance. They haven't found too many openings into Techno JJ. And Palmatora, like Irakizaro said, the clear speed of a Rhyme will eventually just, you know, accelerate out of control. Even despite the CP ratio nerfs to his Winter Spire, you can see how quickly he clears jungle camps. He's starting to pull ahead of Aeon just a little bit, but no, this is what you expect from a Rhyme. He will just out-gold you in every way, shape, and form if you let him do his thing in the jungle. And like Tasty Baker was alluding to, in fight, generally you're going to find that he does fares pretty well against the Rona as well as a very static Adagio. You know, Adagio doesn't have anything to dodge, dip, and dive around the Rhyme. He only has the cooldown, the movement speed from his boots. Well, Aeon going in.
And jumping onto that backline, jumps back out as well, goes so low. There comes the damage out from the Rhyme as well. They can't quite get the kill on towards Calamity, but Aeon and Ghost force back. Didn't use the fountain there, they just used their own healing flask, so that fountain is available for the next fight.
Yeah, Netwella only just finished up that fountain right now, and he should have it now for this siege, which, by the way, we talked about siege a little bit in the last game. Weapon Power Kestrel is one of the best sieging heroes in the game, and especially against moderately poor wave clear from Apfel on this Adagio. You get a little bit from Gift of Fire, but it's not like you're playing like the Celeste this time round. You actually have to commit a bit harder to clear those waves. Palmatoro has spied an opportunity. They have their vision set up. They've got that scout trap in the brush next to Palmatoro on the Calamity side of the map. He's going to go straight for the gold miner. And
it's the only the second jungle, like big jungle objective we've seen across the course of this series. No gold miners were taken in the last game, only one Kraken to help Fnatic close out the game. They will get an immense payout from that. Another 291 gold each, and that puts them about 1,000 gold ahead as we come towards the 7-minute mark. Item spikes have been hit. You've got a Shadow Glass on Palmatoro, you've got the Sorrow Blade on Techno JJ. Whereas you look at the other side, you look at Calamity, you say, yeah, you've got an alternating current, no completed first item for Aeon. They feel like it's just like they're lagging behind a little bit at the moment, Excalibur.
Yeah, you can see Palmatoro hasn't really strayed too far from the Rhyme builds that we previously had in update 2.8 as well. Obviously, Rhyme with a Shatter Glass, it makes him tankier because you generate more fortified health, because your fortified health is generated from the damage that you deal. It also means you just deal more damage, and that is always a very good thing when you're playing a Rhyme. That burst damage, even with the ratio nerfs from Winter Spire, are pretty good. Actually, something that people often undersell in Rhyme's kit is that damage over time effect that he gets from his heroic perk. It actually really hurts with the Shatter Glass. So it's always very key to bear that in mind. He's going to pick up some light armor because obviously you expect Aeon to be his major contender in these fights. And he's going to go for a very early Crystal Infusion. I guess he'll pop that around level 9 when a fight potentially looks to break out. He might pop it on the next fight as well.
We'll have to see, because once again it's taken Fnatic a little bit of time to actually crack this first turret. We saw this in the first game, took them ages to get there, but a good crit onto Apfel will force him back. Techno JJ doing a lot of work with that Tyrant's Monocle now as well completed. If he can land a couple of Glimmer shots, he's going to be the key damage dealer for Fnatic in these long-range trades.
Yeah, and Palmatoro overdriving. Ooh.
Oh, Ghost jumps in, he comes straight to his death. First blood to Fnatic, 8 minutes in. And it might even be the turret for them as well, as the active camera comes down from Techno JJ, needs to heal himself back up. Can't quite take the turret down now, but Calamity will have to mount a 2-man defense or give it up on this next minion wave.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to defend this. It would require a massive commitment. The Gift of Fire is not going to be enough, and the first turret of the game is going to go over to Fnatic. This is the aggression and the proactivity that we wanted to see from them. Admittedly, off the back of a mistake that Ghost made. I think it was very, very silly of him to commit on that level of HP. He didn't even have time to pop the fountain either. But Fnatic have opened up the map now, and that's going to allow them to stray into the jungle of Calamity. They're going to be able to push lane more effectively and take control of that gold mine area now as well. This is where you kind of wanted Fnatic to be in the last game with that composition, but they have a composition that scales very well this time around as well. So kind of almost contraindicatory. I'm not even going to pretend that's a word. Contraindicatory to where they were last time round. They've actually got a later game scaling composition, but are doing better in the early game, which is actually very odd, but they're making it work for them. And with Rhyme obviously having come online off the back of that Shatter Glass, almost at a double Tyrant's Monocle with Techno JJ, the damage is very quickly going to run out of control.
Fnatic looking for a little bit of an engage as Calamity had pushed up into that second Mustache burst, but Apfel takes a couple of Glimmer shots to the back and realizes he really can't trade with Techno JJ at the moment. Yet to see a big verse come out. Does lock you in place, of course, and is dangerous against a Rhyme who can collapse on you with that Winter Spire, with the Valkyrie as well. It's one of the weaknesses of Calamity's team is once again Ghost jumps in and just takes a crit to the face and immediately backs away.
This is something you actually mentioned there, Medic, because it's a point that I love to talk about, and you very, very succinctly talked about it. It's the use of Versus Judgment on a CP Adagio. When you're a CP Adagio, with alternating current. Alternating current naturally allows you to kite. That's kind of what the item is there for as a CP carry. You get those basic attacks ramped up, and you can actually kite like you would a weapon power carry. But You kind of want to use Versus sometimes, but Versus is going to make you static. It's a channeling time. And even though there was a buff to the fortified health that Adagio receives from Verse, it still means that it's going to be easy pickings for Rhyme to jump on you and just dismantle you with the damage coming out from him. So it's such an interesting discussion to have about when, if ever, in this kind of competition, do you actually end up using the Versus Judgment as the Adagio? It feels like it's almost a steal there, but it feels like a desperation move.
Not quite, but Calamity has to make this move. Here comes the Valkyrie, there's the Gauntlet as well, stun onto Apple in the back line. The Fountain comes out, they're trying to keep Apple alive. He's running for his life as Net2Let goes in with the chase. Aeon there as well. And actually it looks like Calamity might be able to escape. Aeon has been slowed up once again. He's going to pop that red mist to try and get himself out, but he's down, so's Apple, and Ghost is soon to follow as well. He'll try and roll his way away, but the time for rolling has long gone. Ghost caught out with the Winter Spire, double kill for TechnoJJ, and a clean ace for Fnatic.
And that is exactly as the analyst that's predicted, as we talked about at the start of the game. Fnatic's composition just dismantles, draft-wise, this Calamity composition. You could see Outfell very reluctant to even bother using the Versus Judgment, was trying to kite back for the most part, knowing that remaining static in that kind of situation was just going to be your end. Palmotoro even able to just rush Aeon to the side, who, by the way, has prioritized the armor over the shielding in terms of sort of getting the extended items on that, because of how much damage TechnoJJ is pumping out right now. And because you have to respect the Rhyme, and because you fight back against the Rhyme, no one's pressuring TechnoJJ on this powered Kestrel, and that literally just means that TechnoJJ kind of gets to do what he wants in these fights.
And he's gone double time its monocle as well. There's an Echo on this Arden. He can double Gauntlet if he wants. Palmotoro there with the Valkyrie, the stun. Here comes Net2Let, the Fountain used, but it's too late to save the life of Ghost. He lives up to his name and is chucked off the Halcyon Fold. Apple trying to dodge around as much as he can. The healing fast, the Winter Spire to the face. And Fnatic will just continue this chase. Net2Let holding on to the Gauntlet for as long as possible. Actually, it's not even up. It's back up in 5 seconds. Didn't even need it. 2 kills once again to Fnatic, and they can start to look to close out this game.
Easy cleanup for Fnatic here. Palmotoro able to just provide that front line. You combine the fortified shield with the Vanguard, the fortified health with the Vanguard shield, and like we said, Rhyme is going to practically be unkillable, especially with Eve of Harvest on the top of that. But realistically, if you're not threatening a weapon power Kestrel, if you don't have a game plan to deal with weapon power Kestrel in a team fight situation, this is one of those carries that, despite or regardless of how much armor that you generate, is going to just rip through your health bar, just regardless of how much armor you end up having. And you can see the Tornado Trigger. This is a very classic weapon power Kestrel build. Hasn't changed since update 2.9 or 2.9.1. It absolutely crushes even the frontline tanks. And if you're just not going to deal with the Kestrel, she will just, like we said, rip through that team.
That she will. Now Fnatic looking to continue this. Net2Let in a position to double Gauntlet if he wishes. Doesn't quite go in for it yet. Minute and a half on the Kraken. Fnatic have got their third gold miner, and they will continue just to push in here. TechnoJJ doing so much work from the side. Ghost locked away. The crits onto the turrets are huge as well, and now Ghost jumps in. Good Gideon Wall will knock TechnoJJ back. And now we'll have to see if Calamity can hold on. The Crystal Sentry comes out once again. Just a lonely, lonely icon of the depths of which Calamity have fallen to here as the Sentry is eliminated from the Halcyon Fold, and Calamity will follow soon after. You have to think Ghost goes in, good Githian Wall, the knockback, the kill straight away, and that could be the opening that Calamity need. Palmotoro gets into the midst of them all, good double Gauntlet, Apple trying to dodge across the side, and now we actually see that so much damage coming out onto Net2Let. Apple keeping himself alive up towards the side, the mortal wounds on towards Palmotoro, but still he survives, and still he's alive, but Apple will eventually take down Net2Let, and now we'll have to see if Palmotoro can do anything. He can't. It's an ace in favor of Calamity, and they come straight back into this game. Great stuff by them just to be able to hold on. They caught out TechnoJJ. He was not expecting it. That great Githian Wall coming out from Ghost to actually catch him out, and you have to give so much credit to the Roam in that position. That captain's role is to make the plays when you need it, and that is exactly what Ghost did here for Calamity, and now they can try and move forward, get some vision control, get some of these treants and these jungle camps back, because up until now, Aeon's been on 42 farm for the last 4 minutes of this game. He has been totally shut out, and you can see Calamity actually value giving farm over to Atful even more than Aeon, because they're not giving him any of this. Atful's getting it all. He's on 163 farm for himself. He's a basically completed build. Just needs to complete out that reflex block, and then we'll see if they are able to win out this next fight. They are still 7,000 gold behind, and Fnatic are hungry for that final fight.
I should be less roboty now, Medic. Am I less roboty?
You are. I was accepting it. I thought it was a phase you were going through.
Look, I have my robot phase. It's maybe my mic going through its adolescent phase right now, but for some reason, every so often, the phantom power supply decides that it doesn't like me anymore and decides to die. But did see that somehow. We saw Calamity find their way in. Actually, they did exactly that we were mentioning this entire game. They focused Techno JJ. They switched focus from Palmatoro, who hasn't really prioritized a huge amount of damage right now. So, you know, he doesn't have the Broken Myth. So Rhyme doesn't have the old Broken Myth, which was very, very good with Rhyme's kit, because obviously, even if you left Rhyme alone, he would generate those Broken Myth stacks and just become very difficult to deal with through the scaling ability damage. It doesn't work the same way anymore. And so Techno JJ, the focus is the fight.
Ghost jumps in, a good Githian wall, though. They're going to try and kill Techno JJ once again, but he does get out towards the side, and now Ghost is dead. Aeon falls as well. Atful channels the burst, but that's way too late. That is a eulogy, a song of death as he goes down. It's another clean ace for Fnatic, and you have to think that they can close out the game from here.
Yeah, they should. Well, there is not that long on the death timers, and I think you'll find Fnatic will end up turning around and actually leaving Techno JJ potentially to take at least one turret here, but they'll end up getting the Kraken, you feel, just off the back of this as well. The death time is probably too short to look for a straight-up game end at this point in time. However, it's almost like that nail in the coffin of the Kraken with just two Nexus, two Vein Crystal turrets remaining, because realistically, Kraken's very, very high HP. You don't exactly have a team that's going to crush it. The Rona and the Adagio aren't going to absolutely rip through the Kraken, who's got an increased HP when it is taken now. And with the fact that you're going to be able to take turrets very quickly with the Rhyme and the Glimmer shots from Techno JJ, this should be Fnatic's final push.
With the Kraken, with the Dragon's Eye actually completed onto Atful now. He's just trying to be that key damage source. They're going to get the root down here. The stun lands as well. Atful there from the side. The fountain, but that's already the kill on towards the Kestrel, and now it's up to Palmatoro. And we saw how badly this played off for Fnatic last time. Another great stun into the burst. The stun lands, and now it's Atful just pounding out the damage from the side. Palmatoro looking for the chase though with the Winter Spire. Ghost there. Another great Githian wall to knock Palmatoro back, but he's still chasing, and the fortified health is still doing so much work. Palmatoro can't quite get it. The kill lands on the rest of the map. We saw NetToilet actually getting it.
Oh! God, NetToilet!
Genius! What an amazing gauntlet across the wall. With the Kraken, he can look for the push, he can look for the end, he can look for the big play that Fnatic needed. They needed a leader, they needed someone to step up to show us why they are worthy of a place in Worlds, and NetToilet has done that right there with that gauntlet. He's looking for these turrets as well. The one shot, one kill will help, but this is all NetToilet with the win for Fnatic. Just needs the crystal as well, and Ghost is just standing there like, I can do something. Perhaps he can, because Aeon's joined the fray as well. They'll look to take down NetToilet, but they need to deal with the Kraken as well. The crystal falls lower and lower, and eventually Fnatic will take the Bane. We see NetToilet pay for it with his life, but that Kraken just needs one more shot to take the win. Fnatic are going to be able to take this 2-0 over Calamity.
Unbelievable, and you feel like the conclusion was foregone, but Calamity finally found their way into essentially attempting to approach these team fights in a different way. Once they decided that Techno JJ was the primary target, Fnatic hadn't been dealing with that for the most part, and they deleted him, giving Calamity a winning chance in these fights. But NetToilet, unbelievable ending there, Medic. Unbelievable play from him with that gauntlet.
What an incredible play to round it out for Fnatic. It is a 2-0 for them, and we're going to hand it over to Munch and the analysts to break down that action.
Thank you very much, Medic and Ex-Scoundrel. Excellent to have you back aboard, by the way, Medic. Great job during those games, and a great job by Fnatic as well, taking the series 2-0 with NetToilet pulling out their heroics to finish things off. That definitely couldn't have been a whole lot closer. The Kraken does it in the end, though, and it means that Calamity could not quite come back on into that one. Talk me through that game a little bit, guys, because once again, we were off to a slow start.
Yeah, another very slow and steady pace, and this time it was just Fnatic looking like a stronger team once this fight started happening. I mean, everything was fairly even. The CS numbers were within about 5 or 6 of each other. And at the 10-minute mark, that's not a very large gap. But then Fnatic